podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
We were going to have a very cheery podcast, weren't we? We were going to talk about United's Renaissance versus Queen's Park Rangers. I think in my preview for the Leicester game, I called that the real start to the post-Ferguson era. Apparently I was wrong. And we were going to talk about a fine victory against Leicester and some fine goals. What went wrong?
It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt. After an hilarious first half of football where we were scoring ridiculously high-quality goals for fun and letting in one stupid one. Once we went 3-1 up, I thought that was it. I'm just in a bit of a state of shock. We're recording about less than 10 minutes after the game's finished, so it's all very fresh. Everything that went right against QPR sort of continued into that first half. Our attacking play looked mesmerising, but once Clattenburg gave Leicester that penalty, our players just turned into a bunch of useless jellies, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, useless jellies is a good phrase. Well, look, let's start from the beginning. So it was a pretty bright start from United. I mean, I was thinking about this game beforehand. I thought, look, Leicester, they're going to be near the bottom of the league, or mid-table at best, but they're not nearly as passive as QPR, and they're a much more aggressive side. And I figured they'd give United more of a game, but United were pretty bright, and 13 minutes in, fine cross from Radamel Falcao. Apparently he's a left winger now, and he can really go wrong with it, although he's not Ashley Young. So Ashley Young could definitely get that one wrong. Picked out Van Persie, who nodded it in, and it looked nice and easy for United. And then 3 minutes later, Angel Di Maria scores a worldie. Just a ridiculous piece of skill to get a ball that was too short for him and dink it over the keeper, and it looked all good, didn't it?
Yes, it did, for about, 30 seconds?
About 30 seconds, yeah.
And then Rocco didn't stop the cross. Blackett and Evans were in weird, bizarro no-man's land world, and Raphael couldn't get across his man. Should have been nowhere near it, as you were just saying before we started recording.
Well, it's not Raphael's zone, so he shouldn't be anywhere near that. And although he got criticism from the pundits at half-time, I think they're missing the point with that one. Evans passive. I'm afraid that's always been my problem with Evans. He just gets himself in the wrong position, and he was there. And Blackett, God knows where he was. Not even on the frame. Not even you stick it in widescreen mode was he in the frame. So very poor defending all round. I'm sure that Van Gaal will get his players, and they do a lot of video analysis at United these days. They'll be looking at that one because it wasn't pretty. What was pretty though was Ander Herrera's finish for United's third goal. At first viewing, it looks like that's bounced in off about three people, but actually he's a beautiful flick to send the keeper the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely magnificent, and just continued that incredible vein. At halftime, I tweeted, "So psyched for the second half," which has just been retweeted by a bunch of Arsenal fans, unsurprisingly.
Oh, yeah, I might retweet that one as well. Add to the fun. Yeah, Herrera, he's had a really good start to his United career, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He scored 4 goals in 90-odd games for Bilbao, and has 2 in the last 4 for United, so he's doing something right. It was always his goal scoring which was the weak point of his game, but he slotted in really well. He plays sort of this, in Van Gaal speak, number 8 role-ish, sort of. He's sort of halfway between an 8 and a 6, but definitely not United's number 7. If that makes any sense, yeah, that's analysis for you. And look, he looks really neat. He is not the problem.
No.
Neither is Daley Blint, although, Blint, excellent range of passing and pretty good defensive nous, and he's getting around. He's not all that mobile, and when it started going wrong for United, he looked like players were running past him, which was a bit of a problem. And then in the third of the midfield sort of trio, it was Di Maria, who was just outstanding until he came off.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Van Gaal, but I think he deserves a good deal of criticism for his substitutes in that game. I think he got them probably all wrong. When Johnny Evans was injured and he brought Smalling on, I think it might have been better to bring Rocco inside and put Shaw on. Maybe that's that's sort of 6-1, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I guess it would have had been sort of 3 left-footed players on the pitch there, in Shaw and Blackett and Rojo, but so it's a tough call, that one, and yeah, you're right. Falcao coming off for what Januzaj, and barely got into the game. Unfortunately, he's having a tough season, Januzaj, and Di Maria coming off Mata, which was a slightly strange decision, given that Mata actually then slotted into central midfield rather than going at number 10 and shifting Rooney back.
Yeah, I mean, when that happened, I don't know why he didn't put Januzaj into the Di Maria role on the sort of left of the midfield diamond and put Rooney right up front with Van Persie and put Mata behind the two of them. That would seem to be the logical thing.
Yeah, which of course brings us to Rooney, doesn't it? And everyone's favourite player, I suppose. He's fast becoming one of the most divisive players as well, because Van Gaal said in his press conference pre-Leicester game that he has special privileges, Rooney, and the captain shall always play, which is somewhat odd because he had a stinker. He had an absolute stinker against Leicester. And it's not just that he had a bad game. He affects United's play, his inability to link midfield with attack, which is exactly the role he had at number 10. He doesn't play like a number 10, of course, because he doesn't really control the game or the tempo of the game. And he was ineffective with the ball when he had it. 86 touches, Rooney. Really did very little with it. Of course, the pass for Di Maria's goal, which was short anyway.
Yeah, he had a very good game against QPR, or
he did
a much better game against QPR because he was playing
in a more normal role.
Exactly, because the problem is, he's not even the way that system was set up against QPR. It was a very fluid diamond with Mata at the helm of that diamond, and Mata is of course very adept at dropping back to cover when Herrera bursts forward and all that kind of stuff. Rooney just looks sort of all at sea in that position. And one of the reasons I was so disappointed when I saw that he was being played there in this game was about what it does to Rooney as well as what it does to the rest of the team. Like, if he'd played another game up front, then he could have started to build that confidence and had a couple of good games in a row. And, the Rooney captain I tweeted, I was sort of joking, to be honest. There's no evidence that it's a joke in the body of the tweet, but I said that making Rooney captain is almost as bad a decision as making Moyes manager. It's really, really a terrible choice. And after the third goal, which Rooney was almost entirely responsible for because he cleared a very, very poor clearance straight into the path of a Leicester player, Rooney's absolutely bawling at the rest of his team until he's literally red in the face. And if he thought that helped, if he thought that was good leadership, the evidence on the pitch showed very contrary to that.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with you there. I think there was no leadership, in fact, when it was all going pear-shaped in the second half. I'm wondering where the leadership is. And leadership isn't screaming and bawling, especially not when you've got, such a multicultural team. Unless Rooney has learnt to scream and bawl in Spanish, I think it's not going to have much effect. Leadership is, as Van Gaal has pointed out before, the player that can translate his vision, his philosophy onto the pitch. It's always been one of the reasons. Well, one of several reasons, in my opinion, why Rooney was the wrong choice as captain. But unfortunately, we're stuck with that now, and for many reasons. I think it was effectively a political decision by Van Gaal. I can completely understand why he made that decision, but it's not necessarily going to translate well onto the pitch. And just for this game, I just thought Rooney had a bad game, really. He was, there's lots and lots of players we can pick out as having bad games, of course. Rojo had a very difficult introduction. Not surprised. I think he will have many difficult games. The pace of the game is a couple of steps up from the Portuguese league, and he got caught out by that. Evans, ball watching, injured. Smalling can't pass for toffee, got in his fellow defender's ways. Blackett, very young, and he was probably United's best defender, until he got sent off with a just mistimed tackle. And, one of the very few decisions that Clattenburg actually got right, that one. And Raphael, obviously, afraid, showing his naivety again, fouled for Leicester's penalty, but then got up and gave Vardy the opportunity to fall over, And so you can't really defend any of United's back four. But Rooney, of the attacking players, the worst of the lot by some distance, I think.
Worst of the lot, I don't know, because I think that Robin van Persie has now had 2 really poor games in a row. He scored in this game, which is obviously good for an attacker, but, it's a finish that bounced off the defender and would have gone straight into Schmeichel's hands, but for that. But he was terrible against QPR, really miles off the pace compared to the rest of them. And I would drop Van Persie over Rooney in the front 2 for sure at the moment, because Rooney just looks more alive. Rooney's problem is he's a terrible number 10. He's a terrible number 10. And yet he keeps being given the opportunity there. So there we go.
Yeah, Van Persie didn't have a great game. I don't think he had a bad game by any means. And, he's only got the ball on target twice, but he scored once, which is fine. That's his job. I mean, he's become more of a number 9 over the last 2 seasons than anything else, hasn't he? He's an out-and-out attacker, and he was the furthest forward of any of United's players for the whole game. But you're right, it's not the dynamic Robin van Persie we know. He's not where we'd like him to be. Looks like he's still trying to find form and fitness this season, which not that surprising. I mean, it's his 5th game of the season, but with 0 pre-season, so he's about where everyone else was on the opening day of the season. So, let's hope it comes good. He's got the quality, and I agree that his form isn't good. And
yeah, absolutely.
If we were dropping one of that front 3, it might well be him. Although he needs the games to get sharp. What I do know though is Rooney will never make a good number 10. He never has been. I'm afraid, not in a classical sense. And over the years, as his first touch got worse, shouldn't have, but it did. He's become a worse number 10. So if you're going to play him, you play him right up front. But it does leave a problem, of course. How do you fit all 3 into the side and have the right kind of balance?
You can't. You can't fit. It's so straightforward, isn't it? There is no way of playing Rooney, Van Persie and Falcao without making big sacrifices.
Yep, but that's what the manager's got to do. I mean, he's got to find a system that works for everybody. At the end of the QPR game, which we haven't quite got onto yet, but it was a straight up 4-3-3, wasn't it? With Rooney through the middle and Van Persie left and Falcao right, which was interesting. I don't think that's actually the formation that he'll end up with. This diamonds is interesting, but it does mean the defenders have to attack, which are going to leave more spaces. Van Gaal said before the Leicester game that a 4-3-3 should allow United to create more chances. He hasn't actually used a 4-3-3 very often so far, which everyone thought was his favourite system. So I think he's still trying to feel out what is the best option for his team. I mean, he talks in very confident terms about picking a system for the players he's got, and that's why he switched from a back 3, because he now feels like he's got the players. But you have to wonder whether he's really that clear in his mind at the moment, because there's a lot of chop and change, and it's not necessarily working out for United.
I'm very optimistic about Van Gaal and United. I'm still very optimistic about the rest of this season, to be honest. I think that we're in teething problem territory at the moment. But there is never going to be a system that's the best that United could be playing that's got Rooney, Van Persie and Falcao in it. You can't do it. You can't do it, because Van Persie coming in off the right isn't going to be as good, and nor is Rooney coming in off the left. And compared to the option of having Januzaj on one side and Di Maria on the other side, it's a no-brainer, right, in terms of those positions. Rooney at 10 is a joke. Playing them as 3 centre forwards is ridiculous, obviously, in the modern game. So I just don't see that is ever going to happen. You pick 2 of the 3 every game, right? But that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is Mata's going to be sacrificed and Rooney's going to play at 10 a lot. Until Van Gaal presumably clicks that is not going to work.
Well, yeah, if he's even allowed to. So conspiracy theory. So look, there was something more positive the week beforehand in United's victory over QPR, 4-0, and really comprehensive. I mean, I thought as well as United play, and the attacking play was excellent, and it felt very impressive watching the game. And I was watching it with a bunch of... it was very strange watching it in the States. I was over there for work/holiday, so I had a couple of weeks in California and watched it in downtown San Francisco with a bunch of American Reds and some expats, which is always a strange experience. But it looked very impressive from 5,000 miles away watching on the telly. But QPR, pretty lightweight opponents in the end.
Yeah, it looked pretty impressive from 20 feet away, 6 rows back in Old Trafford as well. I was sat next to Anders Red, and we spent quite a lot of time trying to work out what the formation was, because we were really close to the pitch. It was very difficult to work it out. Twigged it was a diamond after the game. But yeah, it was amazing. Angel Di Maria looked incredible. And QPR were very lightweight opposition, but also, like, Blinden Herrera did not give them a second on the ball. Basically, QPR did exactly what Burnley did and just sat back and put 9 men behind the ball the whole time. But United had far, far more effective attacking unit on the pitch than they did against Burnley, so it just didn't work for QPR. And yeah, United were mesmerising. Di Maria was absolutely out of this world in the first half, and seeing him wearing the number 7 shirt tearing up the pitch at Old Trafford was just incredibly exciting. And actually that really carried on into the Leicester game. There's loads of positives from that Leicester game. It just all went to heck in a handcart in the second half, but the first half was mint, and it kind of just carried on that brilliant form from that game against QPR.
Yeah, I mean, excellent performances all round from United, really. Both fullbacks really good. Rafael and Rojo against Queen's Park Rangers, bombing on. I mean, they didn't have a lot of defending to do, did they? You know, Cranker and Hoylett barely got a look in, I thought, basically, and, you know, not really natural wide players either of them. Di Maria just brilliant and dynamic. You know, so subtle one moment and pacey the next. Herrera, great all-round performance, rewarded with a goal. Blint, you know, very comfortable in that defensive midfield role. Massa at the top of the diamond. I wasn't sure he was brilliant, but he was very effective, wasn't he? And scored a goal and scored a lot of goals from that position at number 10. And Rooney pretty dynamic up front, you know. He had a very good game, Rooney, at number 9. Which is where he should be playing, and all round lots and lots and lots of positives for United in that game. And, you know, very passive opponents, which helps, of course, but especially when you've got that much quality on the pitch. And it all felt like a fresh start in some way for United. You know, first victory of the season, all the new players, loads of new players making debuts. Falcao came on for the last sort of half an hour or so. Only player the new players hasn't played a game yet is Shaw, for a number of reasons, and after the game it felt really positive. It lasted a week, unfortunately.
It was an amazing atmosphere in the ground as well. I was sat right over, just next in the stand next to J stand, so I could hear the singing section, which I understood from talking to a couple of people at Stretford End. You still can't really hear the singing section very well from Stretford End, but they were loud and boisterous, and I think a lot of the teething problems of the first game, when there was like people being told it was a singing section, some people being told it wasn't, and a few rows and stuff broke out. But this game was much more sort of coherent, and the singing section did a fine job of singing the whole time, and it definitely improved the atmosphere on that side of the ground. However, whatever the politics behind the thing are, and however ridiculous it feels that it exists, it still made a lot of noise all the way through, and that was quite good. Stretford End was really noisy too, so all that was very entertaining and very enjoyable. And you can't talk about that QPR game. I don't know if they showed any of this on the television in America, but the half-time show in that QPR game is one of the most remarkable things that ever happened on a pitch. So, if you'll forgive me a rambling story for a sec, before the game, it's announced over the tannoy, your official matchday sponsor this week is Nissin Noodles. And I burst out laughing, and nobody else around burst out laughing. Just kind of anaesthetised the ridiculousness of that concept. Then at half-time, they bring out the Red Samurai and the Ninjas. So this guy dressed up as a Red Samurai and a bunch of people dressed up as ninjas, and they do very impressive keepy-uppies. All the while, Fred the Red is dancing with a man with a massive bowl on his head, like his upper body and his head. You can't see his face. He's just a bowl holding a giant fork with Nissin written on it. This is modern football, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, hate modern football. Well, look, I mean, United have not been immune to that kind of ridiculousness at half-time, full-time and pre-game for many, many years. It's all got a sponsor's label on it. I remember the time that they wrestlers onto the pitch, which was really, really odd, like 20 years ago. So, you know, it's been happening forever. It's just everything gets branded these days and just feels cheaper as a result. Unfortunately, that is modern football, isn't it?
Yeah, I was sort of watching it thinking, oh, well, if this is paying for Di Maria, it might just about be worth it.
Yeah, but I have to say I find Di Maria an awful lot more entertaining than that kind of nonsense. But yeah, and yeah, hey, let's just talk about Di Maria for a bit, because it's worth, you know, eulogising over his first few performances for United. I mean, he's settled into the team and just brings a whole bunch of class really, really, really quickly. I mean, for all the talk of Ronaldo returning home, which was, you know, it's a little bit of a misnomer, because, you know, it's a couple of quotes from a direct question put to Van Gaal in order to get the United consider Ronaldo purchase headline, but for all that talk, we've got a dynamic, attacking, goal scoring, not as many goals, creative attacking player from Real Madrid, and a very good one at that. And he's looking like a bargain at £60 million.
I mean, he really is. With the prices of players these days, I don't think that's an overpriced signing, however ridiculous it is to say. Like, his first performances have just been... He was pretty good against Burnley, United's best player, in a terrible performance. And then when the team around him was slightly more functional, he was just electrifying. And he was brilliant again today. It's incredible. And after the QPR game, I sort of half-jokingly said, I think we're going to win the league. Which, by the way... Even though it's completely ridiculous, I still don't think it's impossible. But what I did think watching that team is that there's a team that's 2 years away from really competing in the Champions League. That actually there's a team being built there that could be one of the best teams in Europe again. And Di Maria and Falcao as well, although he hasn't had the same kind of impact because he's obviously a lot less much fresh than Di Maria is. But he's just unreal, isn't he? You're just watching him going, I can't believe he plays for us. It's been such a long time since Ronaldo left that we've had a player like that.
Yeah, and he's a very different player to the rest of the players in the squad, especially if he's going to play in that sort of central midfield area. He's giving United energy and this kind of dynamic approach, direct approach that no one else is going to bring. So he's a very important player already for United. I mean, look, it's obvious that United are a few players short of competing for the title. So I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to take a little while. There's going to be some inconsistencies. They clearly need to work on defence, and part of that is personnel. Part of that is just working together. There are lots and lots of question marks over all of United's defenders, and that's a problem. Probably still a physical presence short in midfield, because if any of Di Maria, Blint and Herrera need a break, there isn't much coming behind them, is there? And need to work out the best formations in attacking positions. How do you get the best out of Rooney, Van Persie, Mata, Januzaj and Falcao? And how do you make sure that Valencia and Young are nowhere near the pitch? Lots and lots of questions still for United. And that's why United will end up being short of the title. But Di Maria may well be the difference between United getting into the Champions League next season or not. It's really crucial that it happens. Otherwise, a lot of things don't come together. So it'd be interesting to see whether United do try and buy in the winter, because that kind of physical presence in midfield, whether it's Kevin Strootman or another... And I suspect we'll be talking a lot about Strootman in the lead up to that window, or there will be a lot of talk about him. And an experienced central defender, and it's clearly needed. I talked about question marks over the defenders, all of them. So even the ones who haven't played. So Shaw, question mark over his fitness and whether he's the right man, because he's not getting a chance. Rojo, first season in England, clearly it's going to take him some time. Evans, I think he's out of position too often to be a top-class central defender. Smalling can't pass for toffee. Blackett, inexperienced. Raphael, still naive after, what feels like 6 or 7 seasons at Manchester United. Well, it is 6 or 7 seasons at Manchester United. So lots and lots of question marks, and that's probably why United will ship too many goals this season. But the right signings... And it's not many, is it? And suddenly United will be challenging at the top, maybe next season. Yeah,
I mean, I think absolutely. Champions League this season, if we get there, then I don't think there's too many problems with the long-term situation. The one defender you didn't mention there is Jones, of whom the question mark is, of course, his injury record. That's the big problem, isn't it? Because if Jones was playing every game, we'd be in a pretty different situation in central defence. But the fact that we can't rely on him to play every game because he gets himself hurt. Yep. That's the thing, isn't it? It's like
he does, and he's injury prone. But yeah, he does. He dives in to tackles and throws himself around, and it's having an impact on his body. So that's why he's not reliable, right? Another question mark over him. So there's also a question about depth, I think. So a hell of a lot of money spent on some brilliant players, and you can argue whether the strategy ever made a lot of sense this summer, or whether money could have been spent elsewhere as well, like in defence. But still, a hell of a lot of money spent. There will be some more because it's required. So just look at the benches for the last couple of games, right? So Januzaj, Valencia and Falcao came on against QPR. 3 quality players there, or at least two quality players. Yeah, I had to check myself. Lingard still on the bench, even though he's been given a free transfer, so he's not found another club yet. Fletcher, question marks over him because he's clearly not quite there physically. Shaw and Andres Pereira made the bench, but that says one thing about how he's made some progress and he's a very, very talented player, but also the thinness of United's squad. And then look on the bench against Leicester, and it's Fletcher, Valencia, Shaw and Lindegaard, as well as the 3 that came on. So you wonder whether there's too many players in the wider squad that we're probably sure that aren't quite good enough. So anyway, so all of which is a long-winded way of saying that United are not quite there with the top teams at the moment, and that's why United will not be making a title challenge this season if it's not already obvious.
Yes, quite. Valencia, man, when he came on against QPR, it was really depressing because it changed everything in a really bad way when he came on. It was like one avenue of attack had suddenly been completely blunted. And it just, the thing about the attacking performance against QPR, of course, we were given far too much room by them so we could do it, but every direction the ball went in, everything looked dangerous, and the fact that the goals were spread out sort of proved that point in a way, that both the goals and the assists quite broadly spread out. And in the first half against Leicester, it looked the same way. It looked like it didn't matter who got the ball, we were going to be really dangerous. And actually, I think Leicester probably deserve a fairly significant amount of credit for not letting that get to them. And we kind of gifted them the psychological edge they needed with that first goal. And Clattenburg and Rooney combined to give them the psychological edge they needed with the second and third goals. But they did a very good job of stemming the flow, I thought, as well.
Yep, all very true. So, look, where do United go from here? West Ham United next weekend. That's the other thing. You've got to wait a week until the next game. It's not right, is it? No, it's a long time in football, that, and especially if you don't have any European football to watch. But United at home on Saturday at 3:00 against West Ham, which means, obviously a sound victory for United because that's the only time we play well, apparently. Well, some total of 1, the sample there.
Yeah, and we were terrible, weren't we, in the Saturday 3:00 kickoff? That was I think no, the Swansea game was lunchtime, wasn't it? No, that doesn't count. QPR was, of course, on a Sunday. But yeah, it's Saturday 3:00. That's always a fun time to kick off if you're going to the games, and less fun if you're not, in terms of finding a way to watch it. But I'm sure if we don't go, we'll manage. I don't really know what to expect, really. I would have, an hour ago, if you'd asked me, or an hour and a half ago, I'd have been extremely bullish about our chances, and I still sort of am. And West Ham, fresh from a very impressive defeat of Liverpool yesterday. Impressive and hilarious, of course, although slightly less hilarious in hindsight now. But yeah, that was at their ground, and the QPR game was at our place, and we suddenly looked like we'd kind of got rid of that Old Trafford curse. So perhaps we can find some decent form. But how on earth are we going to make a back four? Because Blackett's suspended, assuming Evans and Jones are not fit. Are we talking about Raphael, Smalling, Rojo, and Shaw?
Something like that, yeah, might have to be. Yeah.
And of course, that does mean, as somebody's just pointed out, at Chase Faley has just pointed out to me, that means that there is a very good chance that this, in fact, will be the game where there isn't a United Academy product in the starting 11.
Yes, although that has happened before, right? So
no, not for 100 years or something.
In the starting 11 or in the squad, matchday squad? I'd check that one. I'm not sure that United have had an academy player in every starting 11 for 100 years. But yeah, we can check with Mr. Mujek on Twitter with that one, whether that's right or not. Anyway, so yes, I mean, it's going to be all change at the back for United against West Ham. Since you mentioned it, let's just digress for a moment to talk about West Ham's victory over Liverpool. That's 3 defeats for Liverpool this season. I think we did say in the preview show that Liverpool might struggle a little bit without Mr. Racist Biter in the team.
You did. I said I thought they'd be better this season.
Yeah. Well, let's just stick with my prediction, shall we? So we'll call it. Yeah, it's like a 4-ball or foursome with the Ryder Cup coming up. You get the best prediction and you combine them, And then that's the sum total of Rantcast predictions.
Yeah, and also you're right, it's matchday squad, and so we're definitely going to have players in the matchday squad.
Almost certainly, because there aren't very many players fit. So yeah, there might be a few more. So it's not going to be an easy game for United, even though it's at Old Trafford. West Ham, on the up. You know exactly how they're going to play. It's a Sam Allardyce side. They're going to be direct and in your face. Which is exactly what United seem to be struggling with at the moment, although there's a few other things that United are struggling with too.
Everything, all the types of football.
Defending, attacking, passing.
Not attacking, no, we're good at that.
Attacking's all right, yeah, just not good enough. Yeah,
We're winning 7-5 on aggregate in our last 2 games.
Nice, very good. What is that old quote about... attacks win you matches and defences win you titles.
Yeah, we've clearly abandoned that philosophy for Louis van Gaal.
Yeah. Oh dear, I'd just love it if United could defend for once. So that is the key. West Ham will not be passive. They will be in United's face. United are going to have to deal with that, and the defence is going to be under question, no doubt, because of all the changes. Because there are probably only 4 defenders fit, because Shaw will be making his debut, because Rocco will be playing in a back 2 or central defensive pair, and we haven't seen him there yet, and he had a difficult time against Leicester, and Smalling only just coming back from injury, a long line of injuries, and Rafael, loads of question marks over his defending as always, so it's going to be challenging for United. Might well have to get that attacking trio right, and big call for Van Gaal with how he sets up his side. Are we going to presume he plays a diamond in midfield again? Maybe not. Just ship 5 goals, so something's not quite right there. So, and then the attacking 3, is it Mata and Rooney Van Persie? Is it Mata, Rooney and Falcao? Is it Rooney, Falcao, Van Persie? We know Rooney's going to be in there because he has to play.
Yeah, special privileges.
Special privileges, yeah. Maybe play him at the back. So, quite a few question marks for Van Gaal to sort out over the next week. Of course, he has a week to work on the video analysis and pump his players' heads full of information, as he likes to do. He said that he gives them a lot of information. Unfortunately, a few of them don't appear to be soaking it up just yet.
No, but he also said it'd take a long time. Although I think the 3-month period is up, right? No, let's have it. July, August, September. So the end of this month, they'll have been in charge for 3 months. So does that mean the performances will start to turn around? It looked like they had against QPR. And all the way until Leicester's second goal. But after that, we've collapsed before, right? It sort of reminded me of a lower scale version of the Champions League when Nani got sent off and everybody imploded for 10 minutes. And it sort of was the same thing in this game. We definitely have a problem with lack of on-the-field leadership. And nobody can believe that Wayne Rooney is the answer to that problem. And I don't think even Wayne Rooney can believe that. I'm
not quite sure what Wayne Rooney believes. He believes in the power of money. I know that.
I sort of let go of some of my antipathy towards Rooney, really. I'm kind of rooting for him this season. I would love him to sort of prove a new sort of role for himself as a kind of more mature elder statesman, but he needs to be playing up front in order to do that, and it would really help him not to be captain. But anyway, that's all well and good, and it's just going to be the way it is, isn't it? So should we do some Rantcast questions? We've had a lot of questions in the 2 weeks we've been gone. Mostly, when's the next podcast coming out? Which, what this has taught me is that people don't listen to the end of our show, Ed.
They might not listen to the show at all. Yeah. In one ear, out the other. Yes. The next podcast, for those of you who are tempted to put it on Twitter, will be next Monday.
Yeah. It's coming, unless something disastrous happens. Yeah, so we're back on a weekly schedule, I think, for a little while, which is good. The next time there's a problem is when there's a 4:00 Sunday kickoff, but we'll see what we can do. Lots of questions about stuff we've already talked about. At Hader _S23 saying the defence will get a lot of criticism for the Leicester game, but how bad was Rooney? Yep, both of them deserve plenty of criticism. At ABC MSAG says, who is to blame for today, meaning the game today? And I think some combination of Alex Ferguson, David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Wayne Rooney, the Glazer family, Tufty. At Luke Malia asks, with the front line being what it is, do you think we'll break the 100-goal barrier in the league this season?
No.
Okay, no is the answer apparently, but we might break the 100-goal shipped barrier.
Oh, ouch, touche.
At Smash Vixen says, why is Di Maria your favourite player and who? No, yes, you are correct. Di Maria is indeed my current favourite Manchester United player when it comes to watching people play football. The emotional attachment isn't quite there yet, but it's coming pretty quickly.
Very good. Yep. I'm not sure if he's my favourite player. I'm not sure if any of them count as my favourite player at the moment. But he's fast becoming the best United player to watch. Maybe even the best United player.
At Gaffney99 says Rooney was clocked as the fastest player on the pitch versus QPR at 33 kilometres an hour. Does this mean his legs haven't gone after all? And I noticed he put in a real quick sprint today as well, which was really nice to see. At one point during a counter-attack, it didn't come to anything because the ball didn't get to him, but he kind of beat a couple of Leicester players for pace.
Yeah, I guess he can put it in on a one-time basis. I'd love to see him do the bleep test, because I would guess he doesn't do that well at that one, but as a guess, because I've never seen him do it.
Okay, that MASH guy says, will Fellaini get any games this year? Legitimately completely forgot about Marouane Fellaini. Not just saying that for fun. When you were talking about who's next in line for midfielders earlier, didn't even occur to me.
No, it didn't occur to me either. I forgot, he's injured at the moment, so he has to get himself fit for a start. And Van Gaal said a couple of weeks ago, didn't he, that Fellaini has a role to play. So he has a role to play. He's behind Di Maria, Blint and Herrera for a shot at playing. But, in that is also Fletcher and Anderson, I suppose. He hasn't got anywhere near the side recently, or the squad even. Is he fit at the moment? Who knows? He's eating his way through Manchester. And Fellaini when he gets himself fit, but he can't play unless he is.
Yeah, loads of questions from at that MASH guy. He also says, which of the youth players will do best this year? Wilson, Pereira or Lingard, not counting Blackett, he says. And I think there'd be a good shout for James Wilson if it wasn't for the fact that he's up against some pretty stiff competition, isn't it?
Yeah, he's going to struggle. I mean, he was mentioned by Van Gaal on Friday as being one of what he considers his 5 strikers, so he's in the mix, but he's not going to get a lot of game time. Lingard, can't see him getting a lot of game time, but you never know. If United shift to a different formation, he's got a chance. Pereira, I'd be very surprised if he gets much time. Unfortunately, not much cup time either. So he's progressing fast. He's got bags and bags of talent. I can't see him making it into the United first team much this season. But then again, I'd have said the same thing about Blackett not 3 months ago. So if he progresses enough, Van Gaal has proven that he's willing to give players a chance.
Yeah, at DBN Hipster says, do you think Moy still goes to Giggs's yoga class?
I'm thinking not.
That is a brilliant question. Imagine how awkward that'd be, like doing downward facing dog and they make eye contact and Giggs looks away shiftily. David Moyes is currently watching him with a massive grin all over his face.
Yes, David Moyes, he might be out for the Newcastle job if and when Pardew finally gets the sack.
Moyes, you can't take that, can he? I'm not the world's biggest David Moyes fan by any stretch of the imagination, but you wouldn't wish the Newcastle job on your worst enemy, would you, at the moment?
Well, it's one step up from the Leeds job, isn't it? So, but just only one step up.
So, I guess the thing about us only playing once a week is there's quite a lot less games to preview. There's quite a lot less games to talk about, fewer games to talk about, although we've had 2 to talk about this week.
We could talk about your grammar. That might be a good start. We could do about 20 minutes on that, couldn't we?
It's pretty... Yeah, we could, but let's not. Let's do fewer than 20 minutes on that subject.
Very good.
Thank you. Let's do less time on that subject. See, demonstrating I can use both correctly, not just one. Proper, like. So I guess we should predict the results of the West Ham game.
Yeah. I'm not doing very well on predictions. I decided to back my predictions up with a £1 bet on each game.
Have you won any of them?
No, I'm £6 down.
Are you predicting exact scores?
I do a mix. Actually, my first 5 games of the season, I predicted first goal scorer and exact score, which of course is a mugs game unless it comes in. So I predicted an exact score, and I might just go for a win next week. Yeah, I'm getting less and less risky, and let's see if we can, get ourselves back on an even keel.
I feel like predicting Manchester United to win a football match is still reasonably risky.
Yes, well, I'm figuring that United will be favourites, marginal favourites, at home to West Ham, and my prediction Well, it'd be foolhardy to predict a clean sheet, wouldn't it? So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to predict a 3-2 win for United.
All right, I'm going to predict a 4-1 win to United and Falcao to open his account because it's coming.
It is. Oh, we didn't talk about his brilliant attempt. Ball flicked out to him on the left and on first time on the sort of half volley. Crashed against the crossbar.
And that would have been it. That would have been 4-1 and we'd have only lost 5-4.
Yeah, well, look, we didn't talk about a couple of the turning points, but that was one, right? Inches away from sealing a United win. And, of course, Clattenburg's refereeing was a turning point about 15 times in the game.
He had a pretty poor game. It wasn't all against us either. Di Maria shanked a shot a good 6 yards wide and got a corner for it because Clattenburg clearly...
Yeah, but that's just because he's Di Maria, and that's only right.
Yes, absolutely. So it's kind of a long time till it comes by. I'm really looking forward to watching United's stunning attack in action again. Slightly less looking forward to watching their defence in action again. But it's going to be a fun season. And, last season we talked a lot about the sense that there was no positive forward momentum. But even though the result was terrible against Leicester, there were still signs of encouragement, I thought. I think it's pretty clear we're moving in the right direction. And it's all just a balancing act of if we're doing it quick enough, isn't it? Because if we don't get fourth this season, then the project is in real trouble. But if we do, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I'm glad you gave that a bit of emphasis. Let's some quotes. Because the word "the project" shouldn't be anywhere near the rank cast, should it?
No, Van Gaal's called it a project though a couple of times, and so's Falcao. So this is how far we've fallen.
Yes, well, I guess that's it. A slightly shorter rank cast this week. That's the problem. We're not having much to talk about. We may have to elicit more rank cast questions, and when we do that, they normally get silly, like talking about boys and sharks and who'd win a race and that kind of nonsense. But
I'm all for that. That's really what I'm in the whole podcasting game for.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in the podcasting game to talk about United victories.
Well, there was one since we last did a podcast, and there hasn't been
perhaps
one.
I should head off to California more often. I have to say, digressing slightly, I had a very nice time in California. Thank you for asking.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad.
I was in Palo Alto for some work in San Fran to meet up with friends, then drove up the coast through Marin, very beautiful Mendocino County, as I now know to pronounce it, right up to the Oregon border, through the redwood forests. Absolutely stunning 2,000-year-old trees, infinitely more mobile than Chris Smalling. And back through Healdsburg, drank most of Sonoma County's wine, and came back with a massive hangover.
It all sounds very nice. I went to Old Trafford.
Yes, which was
Top
even
red
nicer.
Points.
Top red points. I got 0 red points.
I don't know. You watched it. You watched the game in a bar in San Francisco with a bunch of West Coast Reds, so that's pretty good. Any Rantcast listeners out there? Did you meet any Rantcast?
Didn't
listeners?
ask actually, on account of having a stinking hangover and not being communicative. So sorry if I missed you while I was there. I will endeavour to be more in touch next time. And until then, we've got a week, and let's hope there's victory for United against West Ham. We're both predicting there is, which doesn't bode very well, because the square root of Rantcast predictions is normally a loss. I don't think that will happen. I think United will have to bounce back from this one. That's a horrible phrase. I don't like, but
there's going to be a response.
There has to be a response, and wouldn't it be great if he dropped Rooney? No,
yeah,
I didn't say
it
that.
would though. But anyway, right, so if you want to get hold of us in the meantime, please not to just swear at us about our opinions about Wayne Rooney. You're allowed to feel differently, that's fine. I'm on Twitter at UTDRantcast. Ed is at UnitedRant. Get us both at facebook.com/UnitedRant, or go to the show page at unitedrant.co.uk. And I reckon this must be the exact time in the show when most people switch off, but that means they miss this.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.